medium. Well, I figured we'll just cut to the chase and tell you what kind of strings we use right off the bat. Then we can all go home early. What do you say? So, all right, I use the long ones. The Darios, what I use. And there for a while I was using medium lights, and now I'm just using the mediums. And sometimes I use the 80-20s, and sometimes I use the phosphor bronze. And it just depends on what I find first. And I don't change them very often. I changed them more when I used to buy them. Now I get them free and I hardly ever change them. I don't understand it either, but I'm getting old and I ain't got the time. How about you, Tim?
Me too, dude. No, I use Elixir NanoWebs medium gauge. For most of the stuff I do, I also use D'Addario's. I break a lot of strings and always put back on the D'Addario's. I've found too a little combination of the two works. I hate changing strings, that's why I use Elixirs.
I use them too. I forgot about that, especially in the studio, because I do a lot of slides because I like to, and they'll squeak, and you know, some of that's just inherent, and some of it's just obnoxious. So the Elixirs help cut down on that, and I do prefer the NanoWeb ones. It's less of a coating. How about you?
I use D'Addario EXP medium gauge. I like that string. I've had, I guess, less strings to break with the D'Addario.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a good record with me, and I don't know when the last time I broke a string. I guess so. That's good. I like the EXP. I think that's a definite move forward on something they already had good. I like been using D'Addario, I guess, for about 12 or 15 years. Yeah. Good string.
How about you, Roy?
I like a coated string. Anything coated, pretty much. Whatever. Since nobody gives me my strings, I get whatever first quality runs on sale, and whatever's coated. And these are some Dean Markley, and I don't know, they're all right. But you know, the D'Addarios, they seem to have a lot of durability, and I like that. So I've got a whole stack of EXPs because I got them from First Quality last year when they had their Christmas sale.
Very good.
Now I got to say one thing before we get started. All of you that are going to leave, you're going to say, man, I saw a workshop with Kenny Smith, David Grier, Tim Stafford, and some other guy. Well, that's me, and I won Winfield a couple times, but
he beat me.
Yeah, but that was back when he was really young and obnoxious.
And I was a judge. That's how old I am, okay?
And right now, I can't carry David's case. I'll tell you, he's a monster player along with these other three. And John Laswell asked me if I'd go to the workshop and these guys, and I said, yeah, man, I want to hear them. And then he said, no, I want you to go up there and play. So now I'm nervous, but I've got a few questions to ask him as we go along.
This is Roy Curry, folks. Did he tell you his name? He's down around Chattanooga way. He plays around there, has a band down there. What's the name of your band?
LoneMountainBand.com.
There you go. It's kind of a long name for a band, but it's a good band.
Yeah. And you know how we got that? We were on the way to a Lonesome River Band show, and we saw a sign that said Lone Mountain, had an arrow. And we were a band, but we didn't have a name. And we said, man, that's a good name, Lone Mountain Band. And then we went and heard them. They put on a killer show, so that's how we got our name. So.
Well,
enough of that.
It's a good thing the sign didn't say McDonald's or something.
Shoney's.
All right. Emergency.
Yes. No left turn.
All right, so the kind of pick I use. We're going to leave y'all speechless for long. We'll answer all. See, I'm just psychic here. I don't know what's going on. I use a tortoise shell pick, and I killed it myself and stomped his head flat. So don't worry about any of that. Oh, I tore it off. It didn't make a sound once.
I don't think that matters. I don't.
You know, but when I play with other folks in a group setting, you know, I use the tortoise shell. But when I'm playing solo guitar, more often than not, I'll use one of those dog-shaped David Grisman triangular picks. This is, you know, got 3 corners on it too. But I like them. They're bigger, easier to hang on to. And I don't favor one corner over another. It'll rotate.
That's why you got 3.
That's what you got 3. Look at there. See that? He went to college. Check that out. That's why you got 3. That's good thinking.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of pig do you use?
Oh, what kind of pig do you? Oh, okay, yeah, it's a tortoise shell. It's a teardrop shaped pig, and I play with the.
Were they brothers?
No. Oh yeah, I stomped that one flat myself too. No, and it's actually I got a friend who gave this to me from. He makes these out of antique mirrors. Buys mirrors and he cuts them out, bevels them out. So, and it's legal to do that. This is I use the corner. I use the shoulder of the pick. I don't use the point because I like the rhythm tone it gets, especially. And to me, that gives me more surface to put on my thumb, so I can hold on to it better that way too. So that's what I use.
Kenny, what do you use?
I'm using tortoise shell too, and I guess one of these, same deal, 3-corner. Mine's a little bit smaller. I guess it's just I make them just out of the teardrop pick like Tim does, and just use the shoulder part, and just sort of, so it gets real small. So I don't know. One of these will last me about 1.5 years. The bad part about tortoise shell, when it gets real small, you get used to the length, and it keeps getting smaller. Well, then when you have to make a new pick, it's horrible. It's a bad deal. That's a bad thing about that tortoise shell, getting used to the new pick. And this one, I had to just lock the other one away and just force myself to use that one.
Clayton Gold 1.2. It's a tri-cornered, and I like it because it's got 3 sides, and I don't favor one over the other. And lasts 3 times as long. So, but usually I use tortoise shell, but with this guitar, I kind of like the little different. I got a different guitar that I like tortoise shell with. So,
What kind of guitar is that there, Roy?
yeah. Next question.
Moving right along.
I'm glad we picked you to head this thing up.
Well, I worked hard. I studied. I thought, now what can I say?
It is a rock bridge, and it's made up in Lexington, Virginia. And I don't know if they're wandering around here today, Randall Ray and Brian Calhoun, and they make a few guitars a year, 20 or 30 or whatever. And it's mahogany and red spruce, and that's about it. So, next.
All right. Well, how old is it?
It's a baby. It's 1.5 years old, and I've got a Brazilian one, same style, except it's Brazilian. I like it a bunch too. So that's
Right.
they're good folks.
What have you got there, Kenny? What are you playing today?
I've got a, this is a Collings, and played one back in '93, and it got away from me, and I had to sell it. And then that guitar, that was the best guitar that up until that point that I ever owned, and it really changed my playing. And I got in a situation there where I had to sell it, and then I've tried to track this guitar since then, and that's about all I've been talking about when I met Amanda. I got to find that guitar. Well, it changed hands, and I tracked it back to Nashville, and somebody had traded it in at Gruen's, and then a songwriter from Nashville bought it. And I thought, well, that's going to be impossible to find that guitar. Well, lo and behold, somebody saw the advertisement on this guitar, because I went ahead and got another Collings, and called me up, and out of the blue, and it was Mr. Dick Daniels, and he said, I think I got your guitar, and said, you're probably endorsing, you probably don't even need another Colling. I was like, man. And I described it to him, and he said, man, I'll sell it back to you for what I got in it. So I've got that guitar, and I brought it here. I've been playing it some this week, but if Dick's out there, I appreciate it. And got this one. I really like this one too. It's just regular D1 AV, and made friends with it about 2 years ago, and that's about all I've played since then. I like it. It's a good live guitar. It's the best live guitar I've got. It seems like it works in most sound systems, and use it for recording too.
That's kind of funny because when I think of you, I think of old D18s.
Yeah.
Don't you have some of those?
I've got one. I sort of got in this deal where I started playing mahogany guitars. So that was all I could afford, and all the Rosewood. I've never owned a Rosewood guitar because I could not afford it, and started up trading back. Went into the 50s, got a 46, and then kept trading, and then lucked up on a 35 D18, and I bought that, and I played that pretty much the whole time I was with Lone River Band. This neck is pretty much identical to the 35, and it sounds really close, and it's got its own sound. I sort of like I like this sound better, and I played that guitar for a long time, but I recorded it, and I used to record the first set with my old guitar and record this set with it, and then I started liking this sound better. So
There you go. Very cool.
What are you playing, Dave?
I have got a guitar that is built by Jim Merrill. Jim built this guitar, and he lives around the Williamsburg, Virginia area up there, and he used to have a business with his brothers, and they all work together under Jim's direction. I think he's the one that has the know-how, and I think now he's back to building them by himself. You know how brothers can be. But this is a Rosewood, and I don't know what kind of top's on there. Wood. And I've been playing a 1956 D18 because I grew up playing a 1955 D18, and I really like that sound. That's home to me. That's what I hear. That's the way that resonates and vibrates on my chest like that. The back is real responsive, and I like that, and that's what I like. That's what I'm used to, and I finally found one and took it to Belfast a couple weeks ago, and they broke it. So it's in the shop, but it's just a little deal. I mean, it's the bottom part down here has just got a crack along, well, 3 cracks, just along with the grain. It's a fairly easy fix. It could have been much worse. So that's what I've been playing the last year or so, is that 18. But this particular guitar is built by Jim Merrill. And people ask me about that fancy inlay on the headstock, and it's just $1.50 decal I put on. That's all. I don't know what he thinks about that, but I didn't cover up his name, so I figure he ain't got no complaints. How about you, Tim?
This is a Mario Prue. It's a mahogany dreadnought, spruce top, and it's one of the better sounding new guitars I've ever heard. It's very loud, and I just got a Coca-Cola Rosewood and red cedar top Prue. Mario's here, I think, and yeah, I think he makes some of the best new guitars. It's a Mexican Rosewood, and it's beautiful. And he does really interesting things. He's got some innovative design ideas, and uses carbon fiber in his bracing. They're not made out of carbon fiber, but he has. How does that work, Mario? What's that? Alignment? Okay. And the memory of that, he thinks, has something to do with the way these things open up. And this one opened up a month after I got it, and just started sounding awesome. And I also used a CA guitar, composite acoustic guitar. It's made in Lafayette, Louisiana. It's made out of carbon fiber and graphite, and it's pretty amazing. The guy that designed it worked for the Space Shuttle program, and so it's acoustic tile. It's the same thing from the Space Shuttle, so it's.
So it won't catch fire.
That's right. It's good up to 6,000 degrees on re-entry. So, but it sounds great, and I'm using the Fishman Aura system, and it's just so much easier on stage. But when I record, I take the Prue, and I have a 34 D18 that I was lucky to get a few years ago, and I used to take it out and play it, and then started realizing how much it's worth, and I was at Spigma this year, and 2 guitars got stolen from backstage, and it was right there next to us, the ones that got stolen, and they just didn't pick mine up. And you know, I ain't gonna take it out no more. I'm gonna record with it, but I'm not gonna take it out of the house.
Lots of folks kind of think D18s are a cheaper guitar sound-wise. I mean, they were cheaper to buy, I think, but I love that sound. Clarence used a D18 for all his lead work. I mean, everybody knows Tony Rice has Clarence's guitar, and it's an amazing guitar. And it was when Clarence played it, and it is when Tony plays it, and it just is. That still doesn't change the fact that Clarence played a lot of his lead work on D18s that, you know, maybe you didn't know. I love D18s.
I do too. The mahogany seems to cut through mix better.
Yeah, not as muddy.
Not as muddy.
Clearer, cleaner, mo better. Lighter. They're lighter. I love that.
Could
Blah,
you guys
blah,
just
blah.
like play a chord on each guitar so you just hear the difference?
Which one you want?
Just each one.
Something with a bunch of numbers after.
A bunch of numbers. A add 9, 6, 13. Drop 4.
Hike.
Like a
Just
G
play a
chord. How
G.
about that? Yeah. Is that a Rosewood guitar? That one that yours, Roy?
It's mahogany.
It's mahogany also? Okay. Yeah, it's voiced pretty deep for a mahogany guitar. Yeah, it's cool. It's not boomy, but it's...
A lot of times you'll hear a record and the guitar will be pretty loud, and you think, well, that's a pretty loud guitar. I'm going to get one of those. And the problem is, you know, it got that loud because the guy did this in the studio. It really maybe didn't have a loud guitar. So that's something to think of. Also, when you're playing and practicing, playing with others, maybe you shouldn't be banging on your guitar to be as loud as the one on the record was, because your tone won't be as good, A. It'll just make the others around you play louder, which will in turn make you want to play louder, and before long you're just beating the dog crap out of your instrument along with everybody who's right around you. It's just more enjoyable to play it at a more moderate volume. Dynamics, you know, I was talking about dynamics to this one guy. He says, well, I'm playing as loud as I can, what do you want?
Pretty dynamic.
And I said, yeah, that is pretty damn dynamic.
Runs
right
the
there.
gamut from A to B.
Yeah.
That's great. I love it.
He knew every scale from B to S. Anyway, if you play at a medium volume, you have the room to get louder, of course, and you've got room to get softer, more dynamic range. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. Dynamics is cool. A lot of times people confuse that for energy. I mean, and it goes hand in hand, but volume, blah, blah, blah. Let's play something simple.
What's the next? John Stokes.
I answered all my questions. Does anyone out there have a question? This fella in the back. How about that?
How much does it weigh?
Yeah, how much is the 9
much?
pound hammer? You want to hear the 9 pound hammer? Where do you want to do that?
G or A?
All right.
I forgot my capo, so G would be better.
G's good.
I say slow, fast, doesn't matter. F fast.
Dynamic.
One of my favorite things, hearing different artists, professional players play, is how they approach the melody. Tim played the melody, and I think we all did to some extent, but it was always a little, everybody sounded different. Everybody had their own take on it. That's the beauty of the music. I mean, bluegrass music and string band music's just a little box, really. And trying to play something new and have your own take on that and still stay in that little box is really kind of fun. It's fun to get outside the box too, but I don't know. I love mandolin players especially. Roland White, Jesse McReynolds, David Grisman, Sam Bush, on down the line. They could all play 9-pound hammer, and they could all play the melody, and they would all have their individual take on it. And that's the beauty of it, I think. You know, once you learn the melody, it's like, okay, this is how it goes. How can I make that sound more like me? And what does that sound like?
Yeah. And what do you sound like? So can I know that it's you when I hear that? So, without knowing that it's you.
The way I tell folks is, if all you do is listen to Doc Watson and Norman Blake, chances are you're going to sound like a cross between Doc Watson and Norman Blake. And that's really cool if you want to sound like a cross between Doc Watson and Norman Blake. And I mean, who wouldn't? Those guys are legends, right? But if you're wanting to sound differently than those two guys, well, you're going to have to listen to some other different folks. It's like making a soup. All right, you put in a little basil. All right, and you put in some meat. Well, that's all it's going to taste like. But what if you put in a little cumin? What if you put in some onion? What if you put in a little pepper, hot pepper? And you stir it all up. Before long, it's not just those individual ingredients. It's something brand new. It's one new thing. And it's the same with playing, I think. When you're learning and you're growing up, here's what I did. You know, I learned from Clarence, I learned from Tony Rice what I was able to, just a little bit from each of those guys. But as much as I was able, I learned, tried to learn. And Doc and Dan Crary and Norman Blake and everybody down the line. And then I became a teenager and I got a Telecaster. And, you know, I figured only Keith Richards and some old black guys used the capo on a telly, so I had to learn how to play up the neck. And so I did, and that opened up new doors and different influences. Don Rich, Roy Nichols, Amos Garrett, Ry Cooter, good Lord, Albert Lee, Clarence White again on a Telecaster. And all those influences, you know, when you stir them all together with what's already there, what comes out now is not just their licks, but maybe, you know, whatever my sound is. And you can achieve the same thing by doing the same things. I used to try to copy, just kind of make up how I think somebody would take a solo. Like a simple song, maybe Old Joe Clark. Well, how would Dan Crary play this? And if I didn't know, I would make something up in what I thought might be his style, just to see if I could. Okay, that sounds like something maybe Dan would do. In reality, it probably wasn't, but it was an exercise for me. Now, how would Doc do this? How would Clarence perhaps tackle this song so he would sound different than these other guys? How would Doc do it? Now, okay, how would some guy that didn't really know this song, how would he play it if he were in a jam session? I'd try to do that. Okay, now I've got all that. How would I do it? Well, you know, it's the same thing we just did with the 9-pound hammer.
Yeah, I think too, something that's important is listening to other instruments within bluegrass, you know, besides just guitar. Too many guitar players just listen to other guitar players, and you don't want that inbred sort of idea. 'Cause I think it helps to open up your viewpoint, you know. Try to learn a Jerry Douglas dobro break on the guitar. And try to learn Stuart Duncan fiddle break on the guitar, okay?
Or an Earl Scruggs lick.
Or
a
an Earl
Bill
Scruggs
Monroe
lick, yeah, exactly. And which I do a lot of that, you know. Yeah. I love that one. That's one of But you know, that sort of thing, that's just within bluegrass. Now, there's a whole other world out there of music that you know, I think some of the best young players that I've heard recently come along. You know, I'm producing a record by the String Dusters and Chris Eldridge, who's just blown me away recently with his playing.
Eric Johnson.
He came up from an Eric Johnson attitude on the guitar, you know, and he's kept a lot of that.
It's cool.
And his playing is really cool. Makes you think in ways that you never would have if you just had been exposed to bluegrass guitar. So, and you know, that's what people like Tony, it's what people like Clarence did. It's what people like Doc did.
Outside influences.
Exactly.
Anything you learn is good. Learning is good. Feel free to quote me on that anytime. All right. But it's all how you apply it. You know,
Kind of
you
like Carl from Sling Blade. Learning's good.
Anywho, you know, some people, you know, should I learn to read music? What do you think? I said, well, I don't care. If you got the time, go ahead. You know, it ain't gonna hurt you. You know, of course I don't read music, but it wouldn't hurt you. So I mean, anything you learn is good. It's just fodder, something else that you can apply to what you already know. It can all be applied to Wildwood Flowers somehow.
I got a question,
Yeah, man.
because just for you guys, and I'll answer first. What do you have time to think about it? When you were when you were starting out, what LP or CD or what recording really made you want to play guitar? And then I want to know what's the 2 or 3 things that are in your iPod or your CD changer right now. And I'll go first because mine's real easy. It was Flatt and Scruggs with Doc Watson, that Strictly Instrumental album. When I heard it, I just said, wow, that's a guitar that can keep up with Earl. This is really cool. And it kind of made me want to learn. And then I heard Clarence and I heard Appalachian Swing, and oh golly, you know, I was hooked then. And lately, I've been listening to like a lot of old time stuff because I've been trying to clawhammer some. Which I've heard you do that. Somebody told me you have a clawhammer banjo. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And I've been trying to learn, like, there's Troublesome Creek String Band. I've been listening to them, and the Tim O'Brien CDs because they're pretty cool. So, but anyway, I want to know what you guys have been listening to and what first made you.
Okay, I guess what really set me on fire, I had 2 albums that really, I saw Norman Blake on a PBS special one time. Fort Wayne, Indiana, we had 4 stations, and ABC, NBC, and CBS, and then our other station was PBS. And Norman was picking on a show there, and my dad had ordered a Norman Blake album from Elderly Instruments, and got that. It was Norman Blake Old and New, and that was the first time I grew up listening. Up until that time, I mowed yards to buy a record player, and I lived in a trailer park, so had this record player but didn't have any records, so I used to give my dad my lawn mowing money, and he had ordered from Elderly Instruments and got that album. Then we went down and found out, hey, you can get records for free if you go down to the library. So we went downtown library, and that was a big treat for me, and looked up bluegrass in the card catalog. And that's where they had computers, and you looked it up in the card catalog, and the only bluegrass album they had down there was the J.D. Crowe and the New South 0044 album. So I got that, and that just was incredible.
That was luck, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just luck, and I checked that thing out kept renewing it like 3 or 4 months, and just was blown away by the band sound. And that was my main influence right there. I had an instrumental influence, and then had that bluegrass sound, and it was, that was a big deal because it was, I loved that band sound, but I didn't sing at the time, and I knew I always wanted to be a part of that because it just wasn't one guy. It was all these different people, but it had a big sound, and there was, a band's not about one star in the band. You got these people that's working towards one goal. So that really set me apart. And people I've been listening to lately, Reed Martin. I've been learning how to play clawhammer for the past 2 years, and I listen to him. And then listen to John Mayer. That's always in my CD player. Gosh, who else? Golden Gate Quartet. Been listening to them a lot. And then Owsley. There's a guy, I've never met this guy, but he put out a record about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's incredible. It's good songs. It's not bluegrass, but it's really good songs, and all of them's original, and it's unlike anything I've ever heard. So that's basically about it.
Cool. Well, my dad played music for a living. He played with Bill Monroe for a couple years from 65 to 67. So I listened to the record he was on. It's Bluegrass Time. It's Turkey in the Straws on there. Blue Nights on there. It's the band that had Richard Green and Peter Rowan. And my father played the banjo. So I remember them rehearsing. You know, I would always kind of like try to stay up late to watch the rehearsal. Because it was cool. It's like famous guys wearing hats. Like, wow. Well, it's cool when you're little, man. I mean, we've all seen that growing up. People up on stage are the coolest. You know, and so I used to listen to that record. And then the advantage I had is Dad had lots and lots of live tapes. He was a taper. So he had Stanley Brothers, which he favored, and then he had the Colonels, which he favored too, which is the one I kind of gravitated towards. Clarence, rolling, singing and playing. Lots of live tapes of that. And so I grew up listening to that. And as I got older, I saw Larry Sparks with, geez, I can't remember their names now. Mike Lilly, Wendy Miller playing with them. I got a couple of their records with These Old Blues on there. It's like one's kind of a brown album, the other one's kind of a blue. And I had those, and then one Christmas I got the first Newgrass Revival record. So Dad had those live tapes. He had a Tony Rice thing. Dad worked for IBM, so he went to Lexington to learn this one machine and then come back to DC and show everybody up there how to work on it. And while he was there, he goes into the Holiday Inn, and there's J.D. Crowe and Tony Rice and Bobby Salone, and so he made friends with Tony, and I had tapes of that. So I listened to a bunch of live stuff, along with being able to go to festivals and parties that my father was invited to. So I got to see live music a lot. And Dad, well, being a player, would tell me, you know, well, did you see how he was doing that? Yeah, that was cool. Well, yeah, that's the right way to do that. Or, did you see how he did that? I said, yeah. He says, well, you know, that's kind of the hard way to do it. Maybe you shouldn't try to do it that way. So I got little pointers. I mean, I remember the first time he showed me a G run. That was cool, right? It's like, whoa, that's cool. Now I know everything. And so I was playing along, and there was a song in D, and then came the spot for the G run, but in D. And well, the G run starts like this. It starts on that G note, right? Okay, great. So we're in D, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do that lick, and it's like, well, I don't have a D note down there. So I sat and thought about it and ciphered and couldn't figure it out. So I waited till Dad got home from work. I said, hey, Dad. I mean, he ain't even out of the car yet, and I'm banging on the window. Dad. Yeah. That's what he said. Yeah. I said, can you do that G run in D? He said, yeah. He said, great. Oh, that's great. Will you show me? He says, can't you do that? Said, no. Says, but you know it, right? And he says, yeah, I know it. I sure do. Right there in D. Yep, I know it. I said, great, well, show me. He says, no, you go figure that out. It's like, well, God dang it. I said, I've been working on it all day, you know. If I'd have figured it out, I wouldn't need you to show me. That's why I'm asking you, because I've been working on it. And now you work on that some more, you'll get it. And it's like, well, I don't want to get it, I want to have it now. So I took the pick, and it was his 55 D18 at that time, and dug me a little trench right there. I remember that. It's on my guitar still. But then eventually, when I got over my anger, I figured out how to do it. And it's the same as the G run, except you leave the first little bit off. So if you leave the first part off, it's So there it is on the D. No big secret. Just a little tip from me to you. Let's see, what am I listening to now? I'm listening to Wes Montgomery, Full House. It's a live deal. It's killer. And I'm listening to some rough mixes of my new record, which also is pretty good. Hint.
Do say something, so.
It should be out sometime next year.
I bet it is.
No, really. No, really. How about you, Tim?
Oh, well, I was a banjo player first, so I listened to banjo playing records, and the guys who really attracted me were the hard driving players. I didn't know it at that time because that was mid-'70s, and it was chromatic craze, you know, and everybody was playing chromatics. But even the guys who did, the ones that I liked were people like Alan Mundy, who played with drive even when they did that stuff. And then I heard J.D. Crowe, and that just turned me upside down. You know, I'd always liked Earl Scruggs, so those are the records that really got to me, and that New South record was a big one for me. Just turned my head all the way around. These days, there's some really awesome guitar music being made out there, and a lot of it's, you know, in other forms of music. Tommy Emmanuel is one of my all-time favorites. I think he's just so entertaining and melodic, and he's a great player. And probably the best guitar record I've heard in the last 20 years is Borelli LaGreen and Sylvain Luke duet. If you get a chance to check that out, that's absolutely incredible. And that pushes the guitar about as far as you can go in that realm of playing, I feel like, you know. And other than that, you know, just I love all kinds of music. I love folk music. I love jazz. I love blues. I'm a big blues fan.
Old time.
Old time is the element. The older is it something about the older you get, the more you like old time. Because I do.
Yeah,
I've
I
noticed
do.
that, and it's the rhythm in it.
The groove.
It's the groove. You know?
I like the crookedness of some of the songs.
Yeah, they are
Some
kind of.
songs
It's like they should be in other
skip a
keys,
beat.
but
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Everything's way cool about it. I'm mostly listening to dead guys like Hendrix, Django, Clarence,
Robert Johnson.
Stevie Ray.
Yeah.
If they're dead, that's
Lonnie
who I'm
Johnson.
listening to. Sure.
We gotta
Time to wrap it up.
Play one.
All right. Well, there you have it.
There you have it. Play you one.
What shall we play? You don't
Any
say.
suggestions?
Gold Rush.
Over.
Jerusalem Ridge. Angelina Baker. Alabama.
Freebird.
Wait for that. Blue Midnight
Manzanita.
Well,
Manzanita. All right.
meter. Okay. What's an easy one? Let's do Gold Rush.
The Go Rush. Okay.
Everybody knows this. This is a song that Bill Monroe says he wrote. Byron Berline wrote it. All right, that's no big secret anymore.
It was common to put their names, the boss man's name on the record.
That's it. You're in his band, he wrote it. I'm trying to start one of those bands myself. And hey, you don't have a cake, do you?
Well, I do, but it sucks. So
Well, that's,
I forgot my regular cape-ups, but that's all right.
that's all part of
Kick it
growing up.
off.
Who got it? I got it.
You got it.
So once more, that's Roy Curry over there, Kenny Smith, Tim Stafford, and wow. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to the guitar workshop. We have fiddle coming.